Hey everybody from Common Room Radio, I'm Sarah Kay Pazant, a genetically altered mutant clone with a bad attitude.
I'm Alistair Stevens. I united mutants in a world that hated and feared them, and then some stuff happened in Westchester that I don't really want to talk about.
And I'm Vinton Bain, and I'm the best at what I do, and what I do isn't very nice.
So welcome to Excelsior. This week we are talking about the Fox film Logan, the second R-rated superhero movie to come out ever in the history of ever.
Yep.
Yeah, and it was, okay, this movie, you guys. This movie is very, very good, and I am very, very excited to talk about it today.
Extremely good. And
Yeah.
I was really surprised going in. I mean, I've loved the character of Logan through all 10, or I guess 8 X-Men movies. Because he wasn't... We were playing this game right before we sat down to start recording. Can you name all of the X-Men movies in order? And can you figure out which ones Wolverine was in?
You can name them, maybe not necessarily in order. I mean, you know.
I felt pretty good.
Yeah.
I felt pretty good about where we ended up.
I think so too, yes.
There's a few I wanted to take out, though.
In a number of ways, yes. He's barely in X-Men First Class.
Yes.
And then he isn't in X-Men Apocalypse, but he's in all of the others.
I think that's right. Yeah. I think that's what we decided, especially because 2 of them are Wolverine films.
They sure are.
That are kind of X-Men movies, but not really.
He is in Apocalypse, but it's a brief scene of him escaping. And
you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd completely. Okay, so he's not. Yeah, okay.
Oh, I wondered if maybe he got, the single F word for that PG-13 film. Because, you're allowed 1 and you give it to Logan, so.
Why wouldn't you? Sure. No, I'd completely forgotten. You're entirely right. He's absolutely in that movie at the end, so he's in all of them then.
Where
Great.
Jean Grey gets to free his mind a little bit, hinting at a connection with a girl who's way too young for him.
If you're going to have your mind freed by someone, though, Jean Grey's a good direction to go.
That's true.
Is it?
Is it?
She goes kind of power hungry and super crazy. Oh, wait, I really like Jean Grey specifically because of that reason.
Jam.
It totally
she destroys
is.
your planet. And
I'm also into that.
Everything is fine after that.
OP chicks, I'm in.
If you had been into comic book movies before the MCU,
it would have. Jean Grey would have been my favorite. Yeah, absolutely.
Also, you could totally cosplay her. That would work.
I probably could. Yeah. I can be Famke Jensen. Why the hell not?
So, did you guys see the previous, I guess, Wolverine solo movies? X-Men Origins Wolverine. Thank you for that subtitle there, because we're going to get a lot of X-Men Origins movies, apparently.
We sure are. Yeah. Just oodles and oodles of them. Yes,
Still
I had seen them. I had seen both of them before. I think that I actually, whenever I saw X-Men Origins Wolverine, someone had taken it from the internet before all of the graphics were quite done yet, and all of the sound was finished. So I was watching
That's 90% of that film.
Basically, his hand blades just didn't look great.
Okay. Oh, they don't in the finished movie either.
Oh, well then, you know what? It may have been a finished product, and I may have just thought, this is a terrible looking movie. And then I vaguely remember seeing the Wolverine, something about Japan, and there was a bug lady?
Yep.
Okay, nailed it. Yeah, got it. The chick from, the second season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer who's a Mantis teacher?
Sure.
It was her.
That's the crossover right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's Teacher's Pet meets X-Men. It's pretty great. Yeah. It's a good-looking movie is the thing. The Wolverine looks fantastic. Yes. It's also incomprehensible.
Yes.
It starts out okay.
Yeah.
It starts out like, okay, they're fixing something. This is going to be good. And then it just goes off the rails so quick it makes your head spin, and you're just like, what happened to this film?
I like that every time you sit down to watch an X-Men movie, your first response kind of has to be, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right, you won me over in the first 5 minutes. My expectations were not high, but okay. And then... ultimately.
How do you guys feel? So Hugh Jackman has been playing this character for the last 17 years, which is ridiculous. The same character over 10 films, and usually playing just a really big part in all of these movies. How do you guys, prior to Logan, because Logan completely changed my personal opinion around, totally and entirely, but prior to Logan, how did you guys feel about another Hugh Jackman Wolverine movie?
Hearing that Hugh Jackman wanted to save this franchise and go out on a high note, and that he wasn't willing to release this movie, to let it be released without it being perfect, really gave me a lot of hope. Because I do like him, and I do like him as Wolverine. I just don't really like the way that he has been written always. And I don't like the way that the character's been portrayed by the people who make those films and who get to have the final say in everything because they want money and they think they know what's best and what we want to see.
Yeah. How about you, Alistair?
I wasn't terribly excited for it, though I was kind of won over by the source material, or I guess part of the source material.
Sure.
The Old Man Logan series is fantastic. The first volume is among the most astonishing things that I've read in the last decade. So knowing that we were going to draw from that, and it turns out not really draw from that terribly much because this isn't a Marvel Universe movie. It's not a 616 movie in the same way as the MCU movies are. This wasn't really on my radar until it came out and all the good responses started to win me over. And you two, I mean, just absolutely convinced me that I had to see this film.
Oh, absolutely. I remember...
Like Vinton, sorry.
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
I'll jump in. Like Vinton, I have loved Hugh Jackman as Wolverine from the very beginning. I think he's been fantastic. And this movie reminds me that actually the X-Men movies have done really well with casting. There have been so many talented, fantastic actors in this series that have pretty routinely, I think, outshone the material.
Yeah.
Oftentimes, the core performances are better than the movies that they are in. It's oftentimes true of Patrick Stewart, of I mean, James McAvoy, Ian McKellen. We've got so many amazingly talented actors. So Hugh Jackman, for me, has always stood among them. I'm glad that this is his last movie. This is his last Wolverine movie.
I agree, yeah. I remember going and seeing X-Men Days of Future Past, and when I realized that, oh no, this is another Wolverine movie, I was disappointed because I really liked First Class. I really enjoyed it because it's like, okay, well, yeah, we get our Hugh Jackman cameo, whatever, but like we're getting back and like we're starting over and we're like telling this story over again. And so it was really neat being able to see, you know, James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, Jennifer Lawrence, who I've got a giant crush on.
Sure.
And like just seeing them go through and like do the thing, which was really awesome. And so then we get to Days of Future Past, and suddenly it's like, oh, hey, look, Ellen Page, she's like right there.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a Wolverine movie? Are we sure? Because, okay, all right, fine.
How it happened in the comics.
Are you sure you don't want it to be Ellen Page?
Are you sure you don't want it to be Ellen Page? Because it needs to be Ellen Page. But I remember when I first saw the trailer for Logan and was immediate. I mean, they're playing Johnny Cash's "Hurt" over it while you're seeing like this little child girl grabbing Logan's hand and all that. And I was just like, oh God, oh no, I am totally in for this. Yes, this looks amazing. I had not been excited for an X-Men movie in decades. Gosh, since I was a little girl, and it was like, oh, it's a superhero movie, you know. And so. But yeah, this movie totally turned it around for me, and I was so pleased, just so thrilled with how good it was.
So where did that turning point come for you when you sat down to watch the movie? Was it immediate? Did you go through the opening scene, which is like maybe the most standard Wolverine scene, I guess, that we've had in this movie anyway?
I think honestly it was like seeing the trailer for me, which immediately turned it around, and I got like wicked into it and super hyped because, you know, that we open up the movie where we see that there's this really fancy Chrysler limousine and suddenly there are these thugs that show up and they're trying to like steal the tires off and like rob the car and all of this stuff, and then Logan wakes up in the back seat and just trashes those dudes. And I remember I forgot that this was an R-rated movie, and so I see a dude straight up get shanked in the face, and I just leaned over to my husband and I was like, this isn't PG-13, is it? And he goes, honey, no. And then I think from that point on, I mean, I love violence in movies. It gets me really excited. I love seeing people kick other people's asses because I can't do that in real life, and so that's my escapism. And I think I was pretty much bought in from like moment one, and then, you know, we see Logan going and hanging out with Professor X, who is, we see that Logan is sick. He's dying from adamantium poisoning because as he's aging, his healing factor is going, you know, it's just out of whack and all. And I mean, like, it was so good. It's like, here's a superhero movie that is about the heroes and not about like the giant bombast, you know, destruction of every other city in the country.
No, absolutely. This is a movie that takes place after the battle has been lost. I mean, we're in the year 2029.
Yes.
Mutants are all but extinct. There are, if you will, no more mutants. Sarah.
Yes.
A nice little call out to M-Day and the Scarlet Witch there.
Yes, which I was very excited about.
Sarah's mind is exactly what happened in Logan. The Scarlet Witch showed up at some point and said no more mutants.
Basically, no, that's I mean, it's on the trivia page.
No one says that didn't happen.
Right.
No, right.
Well, and the director of the film even straight up says, I'm not going to deal with all of the varying timelines of all of these previous X-Men films. I'm just going to tell my story. So he's picking and choosing from each and every one. He very well could have picked from House of M, which I'm into. So yeah, decimation of mutants, I'm in. Let's do this thing.
You're sold.
Yeah,
on
I'm
that.
totally sold.
And we should say too that because this is a near future movie, because of the canonical elements that have been established about Logan in the X-Men movies to date, dude is almost 200 years old at this point. Born in 1832 in Alberta, Canada.
Wow.
That really works for the character, though, because we've seen him obviously bouncing around from the 60s where he looked completely identical in the other movies. So I think that this kind of time span, he has become something mythical. And that's what I love most about the way that characters interact with him. People recognize him as the Wolverine.
Yes.
Which is so cool. It's so powerful to see this character who has become greater than himself and yet also been reduced by that. He is now a shadow of his former self.
Right, yeah.
I am so in for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the movie, you get those comic books that Laura Kinney is carrying around, these X-Men comics. And so in our story, you have the actual X-Men existing, but then people who make comic books going, yeah, we're going to take the idea of these superheroes exist and we're going to tell stories about them and make them grand and way above what could actually be real. And the comics in the movie aren't real X-Men comics. They were made by Joe Quesada and Dan Panosian for the film. And they're so beautiful. I want them.
They're really, really lovely.
So gorgeous.
Yeah, I bet that if the collector's edition of like the Blu-ray comes out or whatever, I bet that they will have like maybe one of those comics tucked in. That would be a good idea. Are you listening, Fox? It's a good idea.
But the numbers on the comics do reference things that go on in the movie. Like X-Men number 117 is all about Xavier deciding for the first time to really work in human-mutant relations, not just have his school of mutants off to the side. In the comic, he believes that his X-Men are dead and wonders if he had made a mistake by revealing them to the public ever in the first place. So that really touches on stuff that happens in this film. And then in number 132, there's an iconic fight between Logan and Donald Pierce, which, again, right up the alley of what's going to happen in this story.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But I like the idea of this movie where this grand mythos has been built around the superheroes. And this is exactly what you would have happen if the X-Men existed in real life.
For sure,
We would build a mythos around them. And the stories that we would hear would be way larger than life than what's even going on, even though that is already larger than life.
Right,
we would put them in these brightly colored suits and we'd have them go on these fantastical adventures. So I really like that idea. And at the end, you get the kid holding the Wolverine action figure. It looks just like in the comic. And yes, it's exactly what you would have.
Yeah, it really is just such a cool idea because, you know, I love the MCU with all my heart and soul. I am an MCU apologist. I don't care that we have a 15-minute action sequence in the middle of every single one of those films. It brings me joy. But it is really, really fascinating to take a look at this character who is obviously out of his prime. And like, what happens to the heroes after they're done doing their hero thing?
Right.
Logan is a chauffeur in Texas.
And specifically what happens to the heroes after they've lost.
Yeah.
This entire vision, this entire mission has been about unifying humans and mutants. And there's this horrible line buried deep in the mix really early in the movie. It's 2025. Why are we still talking about mutants?
Yeah.
Which is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's because throughout the X-Men movies, throughout X-Men lore, I guess, there's always been the sense that they are what comes next. Homo superior will supplant Homo sapiens.
Yes.
And it's whether the transition is going to be peaceful if you follow the Xavier model or more violent and confrontational if you follow Magneto's model. And of course, those two characters have switched sides 17 times each because comic books, you guys. But there's never been any kind of narrative that carries with it the conclusion that mutants are just going to falter and fail, that they are an evolutionary dead end.
Yeah.
And seeing that in this movie, seeing that the world has moved on and our heroes have been left behind is heartbreaking. And it's not just, of course, Wolverine's degenerative adamantium poisoning, but we've got to talk about Patrick Stewart and we've got to talk about Charles Xavier.
Talk
Chuck,
about Patrick Stewart.
what's up, Chuck?
Okay, so throughout the film, we get hints of something terrible happened in Westchester, and we are not being explained what happened. However, none of the X-Men are around.
Yep.
We don't see any of them. And we see hardly, I mean, like, you know, the mutants that we encounter are these children that some shady government agency is like building and creating. And like they have this DNA from these other X-Men or whatever. But like they're gone. There is no Jean Grey. There's no Cyclops. There's no anybody. Everyone is missing. So the idea, I suppose, again, we're not told this, you know, directly in the film, but we know that Xavier is sick. He's getting older and he's getting sick and he's having seizures. And whenever you are the most powerful psychic on the planet, and then your brain is literally degenerating, bad shit's gonna happen, right? And so I think that what we're supposed to gather here is that he accidentally killed off the X-Men.
That's extra-textually true. There was originally in James Mangold's story outline, and I think maybe even in the shooting script, a scene where we saw the Westchester incident.
Okay.
And then it was cut because it works so much better as
it really
something
does.
that exists on the periphery.
Yes.
I think that's beautifully done. And Patrick Stewart just delivers this, I mean, heartbreaking performance.
Yeah.
The clearest cut thing that you get in the film is that there is the radio that they're listening to that mentions why we're still talking about mutants and all this. And it does say that there were 7 members of the X-Men killed in this event that happened before Logan turns off the radio.
Right.
And then we learn when Xavier finally realizes what he's done in a moment, he says, I did it. I did these things, which is a turn that we get from the source material loosely played source material of Old Man Logan. In the comic, spoilers, Logan himself is the one who kills all the X-Men.
Really?
What happens in the comic is that all of the world's villains unite, and they decide, hey, we've been fighting the same superheroes this long, and it's not working. Let's switch. Let's switch heroes. And so Spider-Man villains come after X-Men, and all these different things happen like this.
Oh my gosh, that's brilliant.
You don't find out till deep into the Logan series, the Old Man Logan series, that this is the reason why he stopped fighting. He put away his claws, and an old blind Hawkeye has to draw this out of him, going, hey, what happened? You have to tell me what happened here. And he explains to him, well, I was with the X-Men, and we were training, and all of our villains started invading the school, so I killed them. I killed all the villains, and it shows him like just piling up villains left and right, only for Mysterio to drop the veil, and Wolverine has killed every student at the X-Men Mansion, and their bloody bodies are laying around his feet, and he says, did you really think that you could take on every one of your villains?
Wow, that's dark.
And it's one of the most amazing things about that. So I'm not sure if I like Xavier having done it, but I do like the idea that Xavier starts this school and he's just pushing for human mutant relations. He's pushing these mutants to be the best that they can, and he is the reason why they ended.
Yeah.
He, not being able to control himself in this big event that happened, killed the X-Men.
Yeah.
It's incredibly powerful. At the start of the Old Man Logan series, Logan is just absolutely a pacifist, so that he won't even... I don't want to go too far into the details of that comic book, because you should read that comic book, you guys. It's really good. But he won't even defend his property. He won't even defend his family from people that he really should be fighting.
Wow.
And I will say, too, that Old Blind Hawkeye is maybe my favorite version of Hawkeye.
Oh, really?
In all of comics. He's fantastic.
He's so great.
So I definitely recommend checking out Old Man Logan, but it really is just... It's only inspiration for this movie in the broadest possible strokes. So having seen this movie will not spoil Old Man Logan and vice versa. So
which is great, because I do want to pick up Old Man Logan at some point and sit down and read that, because I haven't read it yet. But I mean, even like, I'm not that worried about spoilers. It's going to be great. But yeah, Patrick Stewart is a just worldwide treasure.
Yes,
he is amazing, and just seeing. I hate whenever you see someone who at one point, had a lot of power and a lot of ability and a lot of capability, and suddenly they are now so frail and out of control and can't do the things that they used to be able to do without even thinking about it. Yeah. And so that's really hard to see. And his performance is just... Gosh, he's just so good. You guys, he's amazing.
I read that he lost 20 pounds for this role, so he looks more like an older, frail man. Because if you've ever seen him, he's super muscular.
Right, he's like a buff dude. Like, he takes very good care of himself. Yeah, so whenever you see Hugh Jackman, like, carrying around Patrick Stewart, like, he legitimately, literally is just carrying
Hugh Jackman
him around.
Actually carrying the actual Patrick Stewart, which is, I mean, that's a pretty good day at work, I guess.
Yeah, for sure, right? I mean, they're buds. It's good.
So at the beginning of the movie, we meet Logan and Xavier. They are kind of holed up together on the outskirts of town, I guess, just hiding from the world, in the company of Caliban, played by Stephen Merchant.
Yeah.
So tell me about Caliban.
Caliban is a mutant as well. He is in the X-Men Apocalypse film, which you haven't seen.
Yep.
Okay.
This was actually not done on purpose. Apparently, the two films were being made around the same time when they were first originating ideas and such. And so they both decided, hey, let's put Caliban in our film. No one else is going to use him. Now, the thing that I don't like about Caliban in Logan is that he's not very close to the actual comic book character.
No, he's not.
Oh, okay.
Well, he can track mutants. That's just a sense that he has. He's a mutant. This is a thing that he can do. He can sense other mutants, kind of like Cerebro works. He just knows, oh, they're over there, they're over there. And he was originally part of a team called the Morlocks. They lived underground. They lived in hiding because they were mutants that obviously looked like mutants, like Beast, Nightcrawler, these type of people who can't just go out in the public.
Aren't Morlocks the name of the monsters in the Time Machine? Okay, cool.
That's right.
Moving on.
Deep beneath the streets of New York City, this community of mutants that didn't have, the X-Men's passing privilege lurks and hides from a world that really does hate and fear them.
Yeah.
So the Morlocks are a really interesting recurring theme, really, through the 80s and into the 90s in X-Men comic books.
Okay, that's really interesting.
And Caliban is one of their principal characters. This guy is... Yeah, we basically have the tracking mutants and the name.
Sure.
And that's pretty much it.
But in Logan, he tracks mutants by scent, which is how he tells that Logan is sick, because he can smell what's going on. And Logan as well, he's albino, which he's super, super white and weird looking in the comics, but he's not a type of albino that burns in the sun.
He's not a vampire.
The only reason that go into the sun is because he doesn't want people to see that he's a mutant and run away in fear.
Sure, that makes sense.
Or attack and kill him.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I really enjoyed about this movie actually was that it didn't spoon feed us a whole lot of information. Like it took me a while to realize like what was going on with Logan.
Sure.
Which I really loved. I loved that, you know, the writers and the directors and everybody just determined that like, okay, our audience is going to figure this out. And even if they don't, like it's, you know, they'll figure it out after a couple of viewings. Like they are smart enough to be able to understand this thing. I mean, we see, you know, Logan isn't healing as well. He looks older finally after all of these years. Yeah, I just really enjoyed that where you're getting like these little hints and things. I love whenever Caliban is talking to Logan about how they need more medicine for Xavier, and he hands him the bottle and he's like, it's totally out and all of this, and Logan gets grumpy and, you know, is talking back to him and stuff, and then Caliban goes, you can't even read that says Tylenol. Yeah. Like, that's not a prescription drug. It's I handed you a leave and you can't even see that. That's how bad off you are. And I loved moments like that throughout this entire movie. I thought it was so good.
Yeah, it really leans into its R rating, I think, not just in terms of the graphic violence, which I think is employed beautifully. There's very little in the movie that feels excessive. There's very little in the movie that feels indulgent.
Yes.
It's all used to this, I mean, devastating, like mechanical effect.
Right.
It's really tough to watch in parts, but it should be. But the other thing that it does, which speaks to a more mature audience, I think, is exactly that kind of restraint.
Yeah.
It allows you to meet the movie halfway, and then you become completely enchanted. I mean, I was on the hook as we're just driving across the United States.
Yeah.
As we get all of these long, lingering scenes between these characters in which not a great deal happens, but we get these fantastic interactions. I was absolutely hooked. I haven't seen this approach to this kind of material before. I mean, we should, of course, mention Deadpool, because the reason this movie has an R rating, the reason that anyone was willing to even engage with that idea was that Deadpool was such a huge success.
Yeah.
And this is as different a movie from Deadpool as it could possibly be, which makes the little intro bit all the more inexplicable.
Oh yeah, the Deadpool intro, like that's our super pre movie credit scene, like
because they can't put a post credits scene in such an impactful film that wants to leave you with a certain emotion.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, so where it's like, no, this is the end. Yeah,
it, like at the beginning, it made you like think, oh yeah, you're watching the film now.
Yes.
Oh, is that Wade Wilson? Is he in the movie? No, this isn't the movie.
You know, if Logan had been here, you might have been saved.
I like the Firefly posters in the background.
I know, I saw that too.
I feel like that's an Easter egg to our other podcast.
Right, exactly. Might Have I Shindig. You can find it over on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I was reading that one of the things the director was saying, one of the reasons why he wanted to do an R-rated movie wasn't necessarily to, like, you know, gore it up or anything. This isn't like X-Men Hostel or anything like that. But he wanted to be able to tell.
I'd watch that.
Well, I probably wouldn't. But he wanted to tell an adult story. He didn't want this to have to cater to like that. Exactly what you were saying, Alistair, just now about like there's these long scenes where not a lot happens. You're not going to be able to do that as well in a PG-13 movie because everybody's bringing their kids and their kids are going to get bored.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine the PG-13 version of Laura Kinney?
It would suck so hard.
She would be terrible.
She would be so bad.
In this movie, she's fantastic.
She's so good. Let's talk about Laura Kinney. Vinton, will you please tell me all about Laura Kinney?
So, Laura Kinney is a character that was introduced in an X-Men animated TV show called X-Men Evolution.
I love X-Men Evolution, unironically.
Which is a TV show where they go, hey, let's take the X-Men and put most of them in high school and make some of them teachers.
Yes.
You know that mobile game, the Avengers High School mobile game?
Yes. The Avengers Academy, sure.
Avengers Academy, yeah. That was what X-Men Evolution was.
Yeah.
Basically. And she was a hit, so they pulled her into the comics, and this is a rare thing that happens. It happened with Harley Quinn, so we see here that there's at least a really good mode of creating female protagonists in our comic books. Antagonists in Harley Quinn. Yeah, back and forth. We could get on another podcast. But then there was a mini-series created to tell the origins of Laura Kinney. And here's where we actually find the source material for Logan, the film.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a comic called X-23 Innocence Lost. And it inspired a lot of what happens in this film with Dr. Xander Rice's father being killed by Wolverine escaping the Weapon X facility. And Rice then being raised to work to rebuild a Wolverine-type creature. And the whole time living with this hatred of Wolverine and wanting to see mutants die.
Yeah. Okay.
And so he creates X-23 in the comic. and they train her to be an assassin. That's all she knows. They send her out on missions, and eventually one of the doctors who works with her, who actually birthed her, because like in the movie, they used real women to take in the clones so that it would be more human-like in some aspects. I don't science.
Well, it's probably easier to grow a baby inside of a human body than a tube, I think.
So, but she actually ends up setting her free, and she has to learn then to adapt and live, and she goes on to meet Wolverine in future comics, and now Laura Kinney, X-23, is who we have as Wolverine in the Marvel Universe now that Logan himself has died, even though they've brought back Old Man Logan from an alternate universe. Comics are complicated.
Comics are weird, you guys. That's what I've just recently gotten into comic books, and they are bonkers. Utterly bonkers.
One of the interesting things about X-23 Laura Kinney that you might not even picked up on in the film unless you were paying really close attention is that she only has adamantium claws. She does not have an adamantium skeleton.
Oh.
And this is something that was done purposefully in the comic to make her lighter and faster than Wolverine and to prevent the adamantium from poisoning her like it does Logan. And we see that in the movie.
Okay.
Because she doesn't have that, her healing factor works better than his because it's not constantly fighting off poisoning from metal being in her side of her body. It's only in the claws. So when she pulls the claws out, she's not having to deal with that poison anymore.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Can we talk about, so the actress's name is Daphne Keane. This was her film debut, playing Laura Kinney, X-23. This girl is amazing.
She's completely extraordinary.
She's so good.
Though she doesn't say a word for the first, hour and a half in the movie, there is never a doubt as to what she's feeling. There's never a question as to her internal monologue. She manages to deliver something that is a performance that is so sophisticated and weirdly ambitious despite being wordless for most of the film.
Yeah.
And then when she does finally break and talk, it's just everything. The way that the movie hands off responsibility for the future in like the most thematic, grandiose sense, the way that the movie takes this burden from Logan and from Xavier too, resolves that burden and hands Laura the future. It really touches me. I mean, it really affects me. I got seriously choked up at the end of this movie.
Yes,
As she is adjusting the cross, I'll say no more than that right at the very end of the movie. You guys, that's really powerful.
It really, really is.
And reflects, I think, a really important idea that runs very quietly through all of the X-Men stories. If we're now looking back from First Class in the 60s to this story, we're spanning 60 years of this alternate history in which we have seen really mutants vilified, hated, hunted, attacked, and then ultimately all but exterminated. This is not the joyous, bouncy, primary color spandex adventure that we get in most X-Men comic books.
Right.
This is something much, much darker. And as anyone who's listened to me on podcasts before will know, hope and optimism are like my primary values. I love stories that speak to hope. Hope will break my heart in a story more readily than the gravest tragedy. And to see this hope, first of all, broken, to see it shattered at the beginning of the film. There are no more mutants. We are done now.
Yeah.
And then to have it restored at the end, I am astonishingly kind of on the hook for another X-Men movie now.
Yeah.
And I never thought that would be the case.
Right.
As long as it stars this beautiful, perfect actress that we have.
Give me Daphne Keane. Show me Daphne Keane murdering the shit out of a ton of dudes.
I need an all-new Wolverine movie.
That's exactly it. Yeah. I want Wolverine in Canada, surrounded by these kids. I mean, you've basically reset the status quo now to where we could have a new, Xavier school. We could really start over where we were. That would be fantastic.
We could just go the Wolverine and the X-Men route and have the Jean Grey School of Higher Learning.
Jean Grey School. Oh.
Yeah, but she might be dead in this film. So.
Well, she's dead. She's dead there.
very
That's why
dead.
the school's named after her.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it's not her school. They named the school for her.
Yes.
Okay, great. I love whenever we first get Laura in the rundown hole that Logan and Xavier are chilling out in, and she's eating her Chex Mix. Not Chex Mix. She's eating her Chex cereal.
Sure.
And Xavier is having conversations with her. He's like talking out loud to her while she's thinking at him. And I really enjoyed that bit. I thought that was really, really cool.
Choo-choo.
Yeah. And the scene when they're in the casino hotel and they're watching the movie Shane, that old Western film, and then Xavier starts talking about how this was the first movie he ever saw in cinemas, that was ad-libbed because Patrick Stewart actually remembered going and seeing that movie when he was a child in cinemas. And so he just added that bit to it. And it's amazing.
Right.
Which is why you get that one slightly odd beat of dialogue where he says that he saw this as a child in his hometown. I don't think people generally refer to their hometown as their hometown. They generally give it, the name of the hometown.
Yes.
He couldn't remember, I guess, where Charles Xavier grew up, which is fine. Just completely fine.
Was it like Edinburgh or something?
Edinburgh? Edinburgh.
Edinburgh. What did I say?
No, Xavier's not Scottish.
Hey! Ask me about more UK geography. Moving on.
The only thing I can remember from Xavier's youth is that he and his father were at Alamogordo for nuclear testing.
Where is that?
Arizona, New Mexico. I forget exactly where, but he
that's
was
not
out
Britain
there.
at all.
No, it's not. He was out there when his mother remarried Cain Marco's father. Cain Marco becomes the Juggernaut. Which is why Juggernaut and Xavier are half brothers.
Oh, okay.
All of this isn't going in the podcast. It's
no, that's totally fine.
Yeah, I don't know what they say in the movies, but he's definitely born in New York in the comics. So,
huh? Wait, is he American in the comics?
Yeah, he's American.
What?
Yeah, I know.
That's wild. I cannot possibly imagine an American Xavier. That's so strange.
Oh, don't worry. He still probably has some kind of European way of speaking.
Oh, good. Yeah, because he says all smart folks are British. That's how it goes.
He's got money and he's smart. So he's British.
Exactly. So let's talk about Pierce real quick with his weird, super cool robot arm.
Donald Pierce, leader of the Reavers.
Leader of the Reavers, again, oddly applicable to another podcast we did.
Not those Reavers. And really not much like the Reavers from the comics. In the comics, you have the Reavers being, there are some connections to be drawn here, a militaristic group who do have robotic bits and pieces to them, but not just bits and pieces. There's literally a guy called Tank Treads who has tank treads for legs. We didn't get to see that in the movie. I was a little disappointed.
Shame. I think it would have been good, yeah. It's interesting, though. The Reavers are, one of the many, many groups that come after the X-Men, that come after mutants in general, because they always need a group to push back against them. That's fine. The Reavers have always stood out to me because of that mechanical upgrade process.
Yeah, it's like
the mechanical augmentation.
They're augmenting themselves. Yeah. They're making themselves more than human and then hunting these people who are naturally more than human.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting. The idea of technology as something that we can control as opposed to this evolutionary, whether it's the X gene or it's cosmic rays or it's some other explanation that we're giving for superpowers, that has always stood outside of our own rational control, whereas technology, as a counterpoint, stands within our rational control. And that contrast is really interesting. There are great, of course, Iron Man stories about that exact intersection. So I found that really interesting. I really like that we used the Reavers here.
Yeah, they worked for me, absolutely. As soon as that smarmy guy shows up and starts talking to Logan, and he sets foot right there in the place, right? And then he's all like, oh, hey, is the doc around? Or whatever, talking about Xavier. Yep. And just like, the guy knows what's up. And that, whenever the villains know what is going on and like have all the information they need, it makes them really scary and a legitimate threat.
Yeah. This is Boyd Holbrook, who plays Pierce and is, charming and fantastic and super creepy.
Yeah, he does a great job. And there are technically two other villains in this film. He's our main villain, though, I think. And then you have the random person just for backstory, and then you have the weapon that he uses, which could be counted as a villain.
Sure.
Which is X-24. Which is not a thing from the comic books.
I was wondering about that, yeah.
There have been other X's leading up to X-23, and then in the X-23 origin, there's X-24 through X-50, and she destroys them all before leaving the facility.
Oh.
So as an act of mercy.
Yeah.
As an act
of
sure.
Mercy, like, hey,
like that scene in Alien Resurrection.
Exactly.
Okay, great.
But there was a robot called Albert version of Wolverine, created by Donald Pierce to kill Wolverine. So there was a robot Wolverine called Albert who tried killing him.
Albert doesn't necessarily strike fear into the hearts of...
It does when it looks like Wolverine.
I guess so. I don't know. I guess if something comes at me with giant adamantium claws, I'm going to be afraid no matter what it's called.
Robo Hugh Jackman storms through the door of the studio right here.
I am
My name is Albert. Okay.
Speaking of that, how did that work for you in the film? Having here's another Wolverine clone coming to kill Wolverine. It just looks like he's going to just do all the things that we wanted to see Wolverine do, but he can't because now Wolverine's old.
Yeah, and he has a haircut very similar to Liev Schreiber in the Wolverine origin
Which
film.
Is disappointing because Sabretooth was also supposed to be in this movie.
Yeah.
And I think that it felt to me immediately as though that should have been the Sabretooth role.
Yes.
That if we could have got Liev Schreiber back and we could have recreated that animosity, and I'm not sure that that's something that necessarily
we maybe wouldn't have had space for it in, here in the film. Like in the comics, you could absolutely do that because, it's a long form storytelling, but whenever you've got, 2 hours max or whatever to tell your story.
I feel as though this movie could have done it. This movie could just have had Sabretooth show up and explain nothing.
You know what? It could have. You're right.
And just had that engagement, had that physical conflict between the two and resolved it that way. I have to say X-24 is perhaps the element in the movie with which I'm least impressed.
Yeah.
I kind of wish we'd done... honestly, pretty much anything but that. Just a different direction.
There are elements of it that I do like. I like the story aspect of it, of having your protagonist having to face himself and a stronger, better, younger version of himself, of who he used to be, even or of who he could have become had he not met Charles Xavier and then just let into his animal tendencies and his violent tendencies.
Yeah.
And so I like that story idea. I don't necessarily like let's just let Wolverine run on the rampage so we can get some cool violent scenes out of our film.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think there's some thematic weight there that we could get into, but I don't feel that we necessarily do. And when we're already dealing with Laura, when we're already dealing with this idea of who are you when you are displaced essentially into another body? Like what defines you when you are cloned? How much of Laura is Logan? And I guess vice versa. When we're already engaged in part with those questions in a really interesting and sophisticated and ambitious way. I mean, having Laura be the clone really works for me. X-24 plays much more flatly to me.
Yes,
much more comic book, much more conventional superhero movie. So a little disappointed, but I have to say really not bad. Not a disaster.
It worked out, especially because, we're not doing like a CGI thing. Like that's just Hugh Jackman. Like it's just Hugh Jackman. And what we end up with that scene is that we do end up with that's whenever we get the scene with Xavier remembering what happened in Westchester, and he's telling the story to who he thinks is Logan, and then turns around,
and us as the audience are going, something seems weird. He's not even dressed the same. What's happening here?
What's going on here? And then I'll put a giant spoiler tag in the show notes just in case that wasn't evident already. But then X-24 does just kill Xavier right there, and that's not a survivable wound.
Nope.
No,
that's a super, super bad dead wound.
That doesn't stop Logan from picking him up and running down to the pickup truck as if he's going to be able to do something with him.
I'm not sure that Logan knows what will kill other people. I mean, he's taken terrible damage over the years.
You'll be fine. I healed him.
This is okay. Yeah, no, it's totally good. It's totally good.
Is this a Band-Aid? Is this, what
do I do here, though?
Triple antibiotic. Where's the triple antibiotic?
Okay, was anyone surprised that Xavier died in this movie? I mean, I thought it was beautifully done.
I was a little surprised.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great then.
Yeah.
Because that means that the movie really did subvert your expectations. As soon as they said that Xavier was in this movie, I was confident that he was going to.
Well, and I mean, but like, okay, I've been watching X-Men movies for the last 17 years, and like, there's Dead, and then there's X-Men Dead.
That's
right?
True. This is the second time, possibly third time, that Xavier has died. He's not coming back from
Also, to be fair, as from a comic book standpoint, there's Dead, and then there's Charles Xavier Dead, which is usually him hiding in a basement pretending to be dead for a year.
He's just hanging out with Nick Fury until like stuff smooths over.
He legitimately his space bird girlfriend, Leandra of the Shi'ar.
What?
Yep.
Comic books.
He went and did that, told everyone he got a disease, pretended to die, and then lived in the basement of the X-Mansion while they were all above him thinking he was dead for a year.
They just didn't notice that all the crumpets had gone missing, I guess.
Again, not actually British.
Damn it. Not my Xavier. But no, I was surprised whenever Xavier died, and of course weeping profusely in the theater, and just I mean we've got this entire thing where it's like it's almost as though Logan is running around with like his dad and his kid, right? And now, and because Xavier was like really, I mean. Because at this point, we don't know if Laura talks at all. The only communication we've seen Laura doing is communicating with Xavier, and now Xavier is not there, which means that like there's this big communication break. Everything that Logan is trying to do, like trying to help this girl at the behest of Xavier, now he has to do on his own, and he doesn't know how to talk to her. He doesn't know. I mean, she's not talking back to him, and it just was. Oh, it was very, very affecting.
Yeah. I think what you were saying earlier about this idea, this thematic contrast between Logan and X-24, I think that works best in this moment because there is the sense in which Xavier is finally killed by the failure of his vision. Because we get this recitation earlier in the movie about what happened between between Xavier and Logan. You know, when I found you, you were fighting in a cage match in Canada, and I brought you into the school. That is what Xavier was for, in effect. That was his mission. That was his purpose. And this is what happens. X-24 is what happens without that influence. So I do think there's something there. I still think it sits oddly in the heart of the movie, but it works pretty powerfully.
Also, sorry about your life, Munson family. You guys were just trying to be really nice.
Yeah, right. Can we talk for a moment that a big portion of this film is set in Oklahoma City?
And how much I love that personally.
And how much they didn't know how to work a map or what was actually in Oklahoma City.
Well, maybe
they actually came here to film. They came to Oklahoma to film.
Which parts of Oklahoma did they film in?
I don't know that, but I do know that sign where it says that Ada isn't very far away is in Oklahoma, but that would mean that they're heading toward New York and not North Dakota.
No, they're going the wrong direction.
They're going the wrong direction.
Yeah, come on, guys.
And there is not a giant Harrah's Casino Hotel in Oklahoma City. That's not a thing that there is.
No, all of our casinos are different.
Although we have 15 years to make that happen, and with the way that the Oklahoma government likes to take money from the education department, maybe that's what they're planning. They're going to take it all from education and pour it all into a giant hotel casino downtown.
I like to think that Fox is going to do it, just so that their movie is retroactively correct. They're going to hear these. They're going to go and move that road sign.
Yep.
And then they're going to build this casino
to the other side of Oklahoma. Just pick up the whole little city.
You're Ada now.
You could have renamed somewhere that already. No, that's not how we do things at Fox. We've shut down all of Joss Whedon's future shows. And we've used that money to build a casino. What?
Speaking of the casino, during the scene when Xavier is having his seizure in the casino and Logan is having to fight his way through, that's not just Hugh Jackman pantomiming, having to fight against that. They tied ropes to the dude and had two guys behind him yanking him back, so he was actively fighting against a physical force, and it looked really good.
It really does. It reminds me of Inception. It has that same kind of somewhat twisted, somewhat surreal, but still very grounded and physical and kinetic kind of sensibility to it. Really worked for me.
I completely agree.
As he's getting to the door of the room, and he just shanks the guy in the head.
Oh my gosh, I love that he's having to shank the wall over and over to drag himself along, and then just shanks the dude, and everyone is still because everyone's trying. Oh my gosh, and then you see Laura trying to drag her way across with the medicine. Oh man. God, this movie is really good, you guys. It's a really good movie.
If this conversation is a little ramshackle, we should say for future listeners that we're recording this only a couple of weeks after Logan has come out. We have all, I think, we've all seen it once, right?
Yeah, I've seen it twice now.
Okay, all right.
I couldn't help myself.
But I was going to go see it this morning, but I had to babysit. So.
We may well return to this, I think, when the Blu-ray comes out.
I think so.
Because there's no way that I'm not getting whatever collector's edition they release. This is
absolutely.
Very special.
But to bring the point back to the family, did anyone think they weren't going to die? When I was seeing
hopes.
And then Xavier's like, oh yes, dinner sounds lovely. I'm like, no,
don't do it.
No, don't do it. They're all gonna die.
Yeah.
Logan, we can leave in the morning at first light, as it were. No,
no, you can't.
Leave now and don't look back.
They're safe already. They're safe at the moment. Just leave now while they're safe.
The corn was delicious. Just leave them.
And the dad with his gun when he takes out X-24 and then turns over to Wolverine and he's like, "Yep, I'm going to shoot you."
One of my very favorite tropes in all of cinema is whenever someone does pull the trigger and then it clicks and you're just like, you straight up, we're going to kill that dude though.
Yeah.
I love that. That gets me every time.
I like really that he saw everything that happened there and he's like, I don't even know if you're going to die from this, but I have to shoot you.
Yeah.
You are the reason my family died.
I'm glad that the dad didn't live through it and then had to live with the knowledge of this thing happened to my family.
Although he would have made a good villain in a new movie,
mercy. I guess. Oh, yeah, him chasing after Laura? God, now I'm upset that didn't happen.
I'm glad it didn't happen too now.
So then after that, we get Laura dragging Logan into the truck's not working, right?
Yeah, we have to talk about this scene because this is perhaps the most beautiful scene in the entire thing. This is Laura watching Logan wail on his truck in this super ineffective old man way. This is
John
the
Cleese.
Wolverine.
He accidentally knocks off the mirror.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking to see how destroyed he is by this.
Yeah.
And we keep cutting to this reverse angle of Laura as she's standing in the copse of trees and she's looking out to see the guy with his dog leaving his car behind.
Oh, we didn't even talk about burying Xavier whenever Logan is trying to talk and all he can manage is, there's water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, it's powerful.
It's so good. Yeah.
It is.
Okay.
So, yes, Laura manages to save Wolverine. She gets him to the clinic where we meet a really interesting character. The Doctor who is sympathetic to mutants, who is fascinated by mutants.
Yeah.
Who is a remnant of the kind of Homo sapien characters that we've seen in X-Men through the years. You know, there are always people who are friendly, who are on the side of good here. I love this guy.
He's really
I kind of love this guy's story.
Yeah. What's your
just
deal,
awesome.
Dr.
Yeah.
Oklahoma? Who's like,
you
go
need
mutants?
help.
You
You
know
need
he's got a ton of X-Men comics at home, though, right? Like, that's it. Like, Wolverine came in and he was like, oh my God.
He's like containing so much joy.
Yeah. He's just doing his best.
You heal just like in the comics.
It's so cool. It's like Phil Coulson and his Cap trading cards.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, this is the Phil Coulson of the X-Men
I'm a
universe.
sucker for characters in superhero universes who are nerds about superhero universes.
Yes.
Works for me.
So this is when we get Logan getting back into the car and Laura Kinney is there and she talks to him and he's like, you can talk? Why haven't you said anything until now?
And then she just is shrieking at him in Spanish. I
and she's
love
saying
it.
all the names of all the people that she was with in the testing facility. These are the people I love. These are the people we have to go be with. And he gets so mad. He's like, I'm not taking you. She punches him in the face. He's like,
was so
don't
good.
punch me in the face.
Yeah. He knows he can't fight a little girl.
He knows he would lose.
Yeah, well, because at this point we've seen, like, okay, so I went and saw this movie with my husband, and when we left, we were talking about it a little bit, and he was talking about, I mean, it's not great watching a 10-year-old girl just, slaughter man after man after man. I was like, I disagree with you on a fundamental level.
Is it not?
Because I feel like that is my definition of
Mr.
great.
Pesant, is that not great?
Because it was, I mean, just seeing the way that she moves and the way that, I mean, like, she's just, she's feral. She's so wild. And I love it.
But she's also she's wild in a very different way from X-24. X-24 has that, he is animalistic. But there's something about the way Laura moves, and this is testament to everyone who worked on the choreography of the production, I guess, because she moves like a little kid.
Yeah.
She's got that absolute
like
willful
scrappy,
energy.
like flopping around, basically.
Yeah.
She's basically like a toddler dead weighting in people's arms and then stabbing them in the shin.
That's the greatest threat of our times. That's the most dangerous game. A toddler with Wolverine claws. That's the end of everything at that point.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
You're saying this is someone who spent this morning literally babysitting a toddler.
Yes. Oh man, no, I wouldn't have a beanbag chair if she had Wolverine claws. Beans everywhere. So then, no, I'm sorry, you go ahead.
So they're continuing on this journey. Logan has submitted and is like, fine, we'll drive there. The place doesn't exist. It's just in these comic books. There's not going to be anything there. I'll take you. I have nothing better to do. What am I going to do with my life?
What is he going to do at this point? Yeah.
So they continue on, and she's like, let me drive. And he's like, no. And he keeps passing out. I love this because I've been in this situation with a person before where they kept saying, no, you can't drive. And I said, you're literally falling asleep at the wheel. But she ends up, the sweetest moment, climbing into the car, pulling him over onto her, and driving the car and continuing on. And they do find where they're looking for on the border of the U.S. and Canada. The desert mountainous border that doesn't actually exist.
The weird, like, Arizona Grand Canyon
Fox
looking
and geography.
border.
I just don't know what it is. They just don't understand where things actually exist. It's desert up there, right? The further north you go, it's desert.
Tundra, it's a desert.
It was just a mistake. That was the stuff they shot in Oklahoma.
Mountainous desert. The mountainous deserts
The
that we have
mountainous deserts
in
of Oklahoma.
But they find all the kids, and I love that actually happens because most of the movie I'm like, well, all those kids are dead.
Oh, those kids are dead. She's the only one who got out,
definitely
right? Yeah.
dead mutants.
No, this is a major turn in the story, though, because we could have committed to it. We could have done the real R-rated thing.
Where there's nothing.
Where the kids are dead. Yeah, it's desolation.
Yeah.
It was only ever a myth. It was only ever a story in a comic book. I mean, that would have worked. I mean, it would have been thematically powerful. It would have really spoken to the utter devastation and desolation that we see in this near future world. Oh, but we do the right thing, you guys. We do
really
the right
do,
thing,
yeah.
and we tell the story.
Yeah.
And that really works for me.
I've seen too many YA movies, and so I was afraid that they were going to get there and that the people on the radio talking to the kids were going to be the bad guys.
Sure.
And that it was going to be the company just being like, we put you through a test, you passed the Scorch trial, good job.
They did do the typical tropey thing of the government organization go, we have to get them before they get to the border, because everyone knows if they get to the border, we just have to stop there.
We're screwed.
There's an invisible wall. I literally
Canada
can't.
doesn't extradite mutant children.
I can't walk walk through this. There's a barrier that keeps me from Canada.
Is this a problem for you guys? Because all through the movie, we've established that there are basically no more mutants. But now we're also seeing that there's this national boundary, that what we're dealing with is the existence of mutant subculture within the United States. Are there mutant communities in other countries in this world? Is Australia now like 40% mutant?
Well, that would go with the X-Men comics. Sure, right? The X-Men showing up randomly in Australia and living there for years in the comics. Yeah. I don't think so, because I think that would make the radio thing weird where they say, we're still talking about mutants. I think there's maybe underground mutants that escaped and got away, and there's probably other situations like this happening. I think what you're seeing is a U.S. government-run facility with U.S. soldiers and U.S. troops of some sort chasing these mutants down, trying to conceal what they've done. Right. And once they get to Canada, it's like, well, we have no authority over there. Sure. If we go over there, it's going to be way more paperwork and really hard to explain.
Well, and even if there are no more mutants being born, I mean, we still have there are the mutants who were children whenever presumably the No More Mutants thing happened. You know, they're all just like adults now. So there are probably mutants around. But if America has become this militaristic about it and this, totalitarian about it, then of course everyone is just trying to get the F out of there.
No, that's what makes me wonder about that line on the radio right at the beginning. Why are we still talking about mutants?
As though it's not even a thing.
Here in the US. Yeah. I mean, this could be a thing that we have contained, that we have solved. Look at us.
Yeah.
Whereas in the rest of the world, they have mutants just everywhere. It's terrible. But I don't know if I like that in terms of the world that we're presented with. Yeah. I think it works more powerfully if this is true everywhere. But you're right; it does make the
we never really find out
a little tricky.
Yeah, we don't really find out who the kids are talking to and where they're going. Like, who are these people? Like, what is going on there? Like, we just don't. I mean, because it's. Part of this is Laura's story, but mostly this is the end of Logan's story.
Yeah, exactly.
And so we're not gonna. And again, it would be one of those things where if this was a PG-13, we would see the kids like walking up to the thing and like getting hugs and pats on the back and all this, and Laura like looking over her shoulder into the sunset, and all of this.
It's like an episode of the A-Team where the van crashes and then you see all the bad guys get out and they're fine.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm so glad we did not get that.
So we do find the children though, and we have that sweet moment where they have a couple days while Logan's passing out and coming to, and they shave his hair to make him look like the Wolverine from the comics that they know and love. And Laura and him have it out. He decides not to take the money, and he wants the best for these kids, but he still doesn't know where his place in the world is. And she just wants a dad. Yeah. She's like, I want you to come with me. I want you to be a part of this. He says, people that get close to me, people that I love, get hurt. And she goes, I guess I'm safe then. And it's heartbreaking.
Oh, it hurt my heart so bad.
It's beautifully done.
We also find that there is a serum that enhances mutant powers.
Yeah.
And so when given it, X-24 from earlier in the film is rejuvenated. His healing factor is kicked up a notch. And here they have some of it left, these kids. And so they give it to Logan and it re-heals him. Yeah. But they take it just in small doses.
Yeah, don't do it
And
all
I almost
at
wonder
once.
if something else happened because Logan himself says, oh yeah, if you take all of that, it drives you insane. The horrible things happen, I know.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, maybe Wolverine did kill some of the X-Men. Maybe there was something
I didn't
happened.
think of that.
Because the way he says it makes me think, oh, he's done this before. And it was bad.
No, I definitely took it that he had done it before, but I assumed that it was somewhere between the Westchester incident and now. That he had somehow, tried to augment
where do you
his
get
own
that
healing
serum?
factor.
Like, who made that serum? Where did that serum come from? What's the deal with the serum? You're just not going to know. It's just, there it is.
Surprise in the Chex cereal box.
Yeah. You eat your Chex cereal and you get a little mutant serum.
Oops, all mutants.
Oops, all mutants.
So, okay, we're slowing down.
Yes.
Guys, we're dragging our feet here because we don't want to talk about the end of this movie.
No, we really don't.
Because you guys.
So the kids leave and they leave the serum
and
with
everything
Logan.
is fine and it's super great. They just go up to the sunset.
The
Hugh
credits roll.
Hugh Jackman was a great thing.
Xavier comes rolling up and says,
He sure
I'm fine,
does.
just
Hi,
playing.
JK. Look, I brought back Cyclops and Jean Grey and Kitty Pryde and everyone is here. And that's the end of Logan.
Both Patrick Stewart and James McAvoy show up.
They're like, they high five. We did it.
They jump high five out of their chairs.
Frame. And don't you forget about me. Plays over the credits.
But when we get there, drones.
Yeah.
Drones show up.
And
Logan goes, well, that's not right. And he goes over to see the kids and look through the giant telescope thing they have to see that these troops are coming in. Yeah. This organization is chasing the children. He says, well, this isn't going to stand. And he grabs a backpack, throws the serum stuff in there, and tries to run, but he can't because he's old and frail and sick and dying. Yeah. And he realizes if I'm ever going to catch up to these children, I'm going to have to inject myself. So he just slams the whole thing.
Just the whole daggum thing.
And he becomes the Wolverine we all love to see.
Mm-hmm.
Charging through the woods in a feral scream.
Yes.
Which the behind the scenes footage of is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, Hugh Jackman posted it on his Twitter. Him watching the footage and recording the audio of the grunts and screams.
I saw that.
He's like awesome. Running and going, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
But he's running and he catches up with the kids. This government agency is throwing the kids down, trying to catch as many of them as possible, which I should say that a lot of them are from the comics. Some of them are from X-Men, like Bobby Iceman. His powers are taken, of course. But then there's actual characters like Richter is an actual comic character from the X-Men that is later in the 90s. So I like that they did that bit of a amalgamation of characters to create these superpowered children. But the superpowered children are fighting off the guards, and Logan catches up to him and starts kicking so much ass.
Yeah.
Yes. He knew he was going to die. He knew that this was his self-sacrificial act.
This is the last stand, not X3, the last stand. This is the last stand.
That X3 was almost the last movie I would stand for. But
again, I think that there's a version of this story where you do the serum thing and then it wears off, or this thing will send you crazy. This thing will make you will make you insane. Except that he gets talked down by Laura, just the way that Widow talks down Hulk in the MCU. Yeah. The fact that we don't do that, again, the fact that we commit to the story, we do the thing we showed up to do, is heartbreaking and brilliant and glorious. I mean, he is fantastic as he's running through the forest and being reminded of all that Wolverine has been, all that Logan has been through the years. It's so good.
We get that beautiful moment with him and Laura where Laura runs off of his back and dives into the men. Because he says, get behind me. And she's like, no. And she just like climbs him. And then you get that daddy-daughter moment of these are the Wolverines.
Yes.
Are we going over to dinner with the Wolverines?
I've seen a white picket fence and mailbox that just says the Wolverines.
They never have enough flatware.
They have a lot of shish kebabs.
Yes.
And of course, the serum does wear off, and we get Dr. Xander Rice talking to Logan and saying, "Oh yes, I am the reason why the mutants, and we created this genetic food thing that kept them from being born, and it ties into the fields that we learned earlier, the corn commercials from earlier." And you think there's going to be this monologue of villainy of, listen, this is why I did it all for the best. And Logan just shoots him.
Yeah.
I love it. I love the idea that we're not going to get that monologue. There's no way that Logan in story is just going to let you talk. You're dead.
Sure. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, it's
you
very,
did
very
this
good.
to mutants. You did this to these children. Okay, you're a bad guy. You're dead. Story's over. I don't need your explanation.
No, I totally buy it, and it's awesome. I'm a little disappointed because I thought Richard E. Grant was so good in this role.
He was very, very good.
Not to be heretical about it or anything, but I feel like he hasn't been this good in a long while. But he was really, really good. So I was a little disappointed that we didn't. If there's a deleted scene of him just like practicing his villainous monologue in the mirror before he goes to confront Logan, I am there for that. That would be
just
awesome.
Driving through the woods and
exactly.
running lines.
Yes.
I will take a 10-minute extended cut of that. That would be just fine. But you're absolutely right. Logan doesn't stand for the villain monologue. He takes action instead. It's so good.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the kids get to take out Donald Pierce, which I like.
Oh, man. That is, it was scary. That was scary. It's like, okay, you did this to these kids. Like, you gave these kids these powers that they could barely control. You raised them to be murderers and killers, and they didn't want that despite everything you raised them to be. They wanted more than that. And then, like, you just see, like, he's being shocked and frozen, and the grass is wrapping him up and dragging him into the...
Which he was the muscle at the facility, so you can only imagine he probably actually beat these children often.
Oh, for sure.
And he was like, oh, you're going to act up to these scientists? Well, I'm the muscle that's going to give you the backhand, the mechanical backhand. And so they probably had a lot of aggression to take out on this man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very, very good.
It's awfully good. And I think you're absolutely right, Sarah. What touches me about this is that these kids have been completely dehumanized, that they have been raised in this artificial environment. They have been programmed effectively, and yet there is something within them that cannot be extinguished. There is something within them that will not die. And it's a very simple thing, the desire to be more, the desire to be... Ironically, for mutants, perhaps, the desire to be human.
Yeah.
It's...
Well, and we even get, like, way early in the movie, we kind of skipped over Gabriella, but she's the woman who, talks with Logan and gets him to, like, help Laura out. And, she even tells him they don't even have names except the names that we gave them.
How did you like the exposition by video diary? Did that work for you guys?
I thought it was a pretty good way to do it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
It worked well enough. That's not how phones work, but it worked well enough in fiction. Like
future phones totally work
I mean,
that way,
2029, you
Sarah.
just open the thing and it immediately starts playing it. He didn't have the passcode to... Anyway, like, that's nitpicking at that point. Like, I thought it was fine. I'm not sure how she got all those angles on her phone and how she, like, edited it together with iMovie, like, and then slapped it on her phone for him to watch.
And professional grade lighting. I mean, she really did the thing.
She really did. It was very good.
She has a rich backstory, a rich internal life.
Yes. She was
a cell phone cinematographer.
Yes, exactly.
Prior to being a nurse who worked with mutant children. But anyway, no, it worked out just fine.
Good,
I mean, if you're going to, expose in any way, then it might as well be through video.
Yeah, I liked it for this movie in particular because of the naturalistic tone that we're taking. I liked very much that it was this in-universe explanation rather than doing as we have in most other, if not every other X-Men movie, like, cutting away to the villain's POV.
Right, or like doing a voiceover and just being like, this is all the stuff that happened. And it's like, well, here's the voiceover, but here's also the stuff that is happening, as I am VOing.
And it's not from an empowered perspective is the thing. It's very covert. It's very, I like that we lean into that idea of disempowerment even here. It's strong.
And I like that she was named after the young girl that we have in the all-new Wolverine comics now. Laura Kinney herself is traveling with another clone of herself that's a young girl.
Oh, really?
I didn't get
currently,
that. Wow.
That's her name. And one of the things that I like is that there's a storyline that ties kind of into this idea of Wolverine being the father of Laura Kinney and will that relationship ever work? There's a storyline in there that just a few panels where it's Laura Kinney deciding that she's going to be a mother to this child or at least be there for her in some aspect, whatever aspect it can be. And it's her remembering when Wolverine told her that he wouldn't be there for her. And he drove away. And one of the things he says is listen, you're never safe with me. Everyone around me dies. I could literally be making a sandwich and Galactus will show up. Nothing is safe.
Like, that's not a random example. That was this morning.
Yes, and Laura Kinney tells Gabriella that, listen, I'll always be there for you. I don't care if Galactus does show up when we're making sandwiches. And she's like, what?
We should say, I guess, that Laura in the comic books is older than Laura in the movie.
Yeah,
so.
she has been given the ability to age a little bit since her creation in the comic books. The series where she was started in was the early mid 2000s, and she is aged, I think, about 10 years since. She's in mid 20s probably.
Okay,
yeah, she's entered that kind of no man's land where heroes just remain until it's time to
they're
age out of it.
26, 27 forever.
20 heroic.
She is
20
a
heroic.
young adult.
Yes, she's
like
a young
not
adult.
young adult, but a young adult.
Yes.
Guys, Wolverine dies at the end of this movie, and I don't want to talk about it.
So, X-24 shows back up. The kids try to fight him. They drop a literal truck, a military truck on him.
They sure do.
And Logan knows it's not going to work.
It was so close to working. It was,
Logan knows his own capabilities.
Yeah.
And he says, I could cut through that truck. And he goes, run. Kids, run. And they just go, and I'm like, kids, run. Why aren't you running? You're not running.
When the Wolverine tells you to run, you run.
And we get X-24 throwing Logan onto this tree trunk and it going through his chest.
Oh.
And his healing factor is just not going to... There's no recovery. There's no amount of serum that they could possibly track down and steal that is going to recover this giant hole that is now in Logan's chest.
Now.
But we get this...
I mean, I don't know. Didn't he get shot in the head in a movie one time?
Yes, with an adamantium bullet. That didn't blow up his head, but just destroyed some of his memories. And yet...
I suppose at this point that was, 40, 50 years ago?
True.
Okay, all right.
But perfectly fine young Logan clone is killed in the same manner with an adamantium bullet through the back of his skull, delivered straight from Laura Kinney's gun.
Well, it's Chekhov's adamantium bullet. Like,
and apparently it makes his skull explode. Maybe they were hollow points. I don't know how guns work. But because of the way Fox makes movies is, hey, this one you're watching now, that's the only one that you need to worry about. Don't try to connect anything. This is the only truth. This is your truth now.
Don't worry about continuity.
Fox just comes over to your house, it strokes your face, it just says, shh, it's okay. Wolverine's always been like this.
You're like, Fox, you've hurt me before in the past. Baby, no. Baby, come on.
I brought you box wine. It's going to be good, baby, this time.
This is fucking Zinfandel.
I got these flowers from the gas station for you. Fox!
Damn it, Fox.
It is kind of weird that the youngest that Wolverine ever looked was not in the flashbacks to the past of any of the films, but when he showed up and went to the Statue of Liberty in X-Men 1.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, Fox. Thanks.
Yeah, no, totally.
So X-24 is killed by the adamantium bullet. It blows up his skull, and he's not recovering from that either. And Laura Kinney crawls in close to Logan, calling him daddy, and it kills me. Yeah. And then he calls back to what Xavier told him in the house. He said, "Hey, this is what family feels like. Take it in for a moment." And he wouldn't then. Yeah. But now he's holding Laura and she's holding him, and he says, "Oh, this is what it's like."
Yeah.
And he says, "Don't be what they made you."
Yeah, and he says, "Don't be what they made you."
Which, of course, has been Wolverine's fight. That has been his struggle for his entire life. Or at least since the Weapon X project. That's... Wow.
Oh, it's very, very, very good.
And then the kids bury Logan. One of them holding his Wolverine action figure, which is so perfect. I love it so much. And as the kids start to walk away, saying, we still have to get going. We're not across the border yet. We're not safe. Laura stops. And she drops the cross down to the X, which is not only representing X-Men. It's what the X-Men are, but to me, it's a reference to Uncanny X-Men number 251, the iconic image of Wolverine being crucified on a giant X.
Oh wow!
So I love that. That's the way that they end it.
Yeah, we've gone to that well a few times. X iconography in the X-Men comics is everything has been done.
Yeah,
but there's something about the purity of this that
because those kids they made that cross somebody ripped their shoelace off to tie those sticks together to make a cross.
And burying Wolverine not just as Logan but as Wolverine. I mean, it's so interesting that in this movie that bears this very simple title, we're arcing from Logan into Wolverine again, and the restoration of that quality, the restoration of that mythic quality. He dies a hero, which he hasn't been able to do for years before this.
And Laura reads the speech from Shane. And Shane is a movie all about how there aren't really heroes. That there's just people with guns. There's some that are better than others, but it's not safe until all the violence is over.
There are no more guns in the valley.
And she's saying, listen, this was the last one of them. This was the last one of the X-Men. There's no more guns in the valley. And I really like that speech delivered there for that purpose.
Oh, it's a pretty good movie, you guys.
So that's Logan.
So how did you guys like that there wasn't actually the Johnny Cash song Hurt in the film, and instead they ended with When the Man Comes Around at the end? I really liked that.
Really loved it.
I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah.
I was too busy weeping to take in any other sensory information, so missed that one, but it sounds great. I look forward to it in the future.
No, I was very glad. I think Hurt worked beautifully cut over the trailer.
Yes.
I don't think it would have worked as well in the context of the movie.
Yeah.
But having that... evoking some of that similar tone, I think worked really, really well.
Switching to a different Johnny Cash song.
Yeah, saying too, the sound mix throughout, and certainly the music that was composed for this movie was fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the sound guy that did the score had to come in 6 weeks is all he had to do the whole score.
Wow.
Because he was replacing the guy that left before who was there for 6 months to do the score.
Wow.
So he had to replace everything in 6 weeks. So well done.
Congratulations.
Wow. Great job,
it's
sound guy.
Haunting. It's much lighter and more restrained than you might expect. It really speaks to that spirit of Americana.
Yeah.
It was, I loved it. I could absolutely picture getting, okay, let's face it, I'm not going to buy the official soundtrack.
Right.
But I'm going to listen to it on Spotify.
Yeah, naturally. Yeah, of course. So, a couple of questions as we're wrapping up this episode. What was your favorite part of this movie? Mine, I think, is whenever we see Laura. I think it's whenever Laura is fighting X-24 and she is just like repeatedly punching him over and over and over and over.
That's pretty good.
And even though he's stronger than her, he can't get up because she's so relentless.
Yeah, she's so. I mean, she's got friggin' kid energy, and he cannot stop her. Yeah, I mean, chicks kicking ass is my primary value, you guys, even when they're little chicks.
Everything from the burial of Charles Xavier to Logan in the clinic, that 5-minute chunk there where we really meditate on who this guy is and how far he has fallen and how close he is to just disintegrating into his component parts. That for me is the heart of the film and works beautifully.
My favorite part is when they're running through the forest at the end, and Logan's at his best, and Laura is joining him side by side. The kids are fighting; they're the resistance, and you just have so much going on, and it's so beautiful.
Yeah,
just extraordinary.
Daddy daughter Logan dance right there. Daddy daughter Wolverine dance right there.
Yeah. So my next question is, where, like, on your big list of, like, superhero films does Logan go? We're not, okay, first of all, let me start. We are not making a big list. This is only everybody's personal, secret, safe list in their own hearts.
This has to be super provisional because I've only seen it once. I mean, it's up there. It doesn't quite do what I love from the MCU movies, for example, because you don't quite have, as we've discussed, Fox reboots the X-Men effectively with every single movie, so you don't have that accumulation of canon. You don't have that momentum and that weight behind the storytelling. When you get to something like, I don't know, Winter Soldier, or you get to Civil War, for example, from the MCU, you're inheriting 6 or 8 movies worth of story and character development, and you just never get the chance to do that in the X-Men, not consistently. So it's not up there for me with the very best in the superhero genre, but it kind of stands apart. It kind of stands much like Deadpool does.
Yes.
It stands to one side. It's not really like other superhero stories. I would compare this more to, honestly, an old Western. I would compare it to the kind of movie that studies what happens when a world has fallen, what happens when the frontier is no longer there, what happens when heroes are, taking off their boots for the last time.
Yeah.
That feels more true to the spirit of this movie. But if I have to put it in a place, I mean, it's top 5 for me anyway. So somewhere in there.
Yeah.
I would say the same. It's definitely the best of the X-Men related movies that we've gotten. It's the best Fox superhero movie that we've gotten, I think. And I'm really into the MCU, and I think we've done some amazing things there, so I can't go too much higher than that. But it is, in its own league, it is a piece of cinematic history that I will remember for the rest of my life as a movie, even more so than as an X-Men movie.
No, that's true.
As a superhero film.
I think that's basically where I fall as well. Like, it is somewhere in my top 5 where it's like, here's all of my, big, bright color, like, super cool. Everyone's all over here doing this thing, and it's really, really awesome. Also, Logan, though? But Logan...
Where's Deadpool? Do you like it better than Deadpool? That was going to be
my next question. Yeah, do you guys like this better than Deadpool? I personally do like this better than Deadpool.
Yeah, me too.
Just because, okay, I'm glad we're all on the same page. I mean, Deadpool was fun. It was good. It was enjoyable. I'm glad that we had Deadpool. If we didn't, we would not have this movie. But for me, I love focusing on character. I love story. I love whenever, like I said, whenever this movie is treating its audience as though we don't need to spoon feed you every single thing. We can trust that you will understand some of this stuff. And just how, even though, like I just said, my favorite part is the 10-year-old, like, slaughtering a dude's face. Like, this movie is more subtle, I feel like, than Deadpool is.
Way more, well, okay. Yes. Every single thing that has ever been created is more subtle than Deadpool is. But yes, I mean,
I like Logan better than Deadpool.
It doesn't abuse its R rating in quite the way as Deadpool does, which is uses Deadpool's specific and stated intent is to abuse that R rating.
That's Deadpool's job.
Sure.
Yeah.
But I like it, much more than I like. And I like Deadpool, I think, more than most people, too. So I think that's a great movie that is unexpected in some really interesting ways. But Logan is, And as I said, while Fox does reboot the X-Men movies and we don't really have that continuity of character, if there is a continuous character in the X-Men franchise, it is Logan. He is the one who was there from the beginning and who is now there till the bitter end. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Real good. What are we doing next week on Excelsior? Since this was our first episode, you guys. Yay! Good job. High five. All right. Next week?
Next week, we're doing the most recent Vision comic series, right? We're doing the 2 trades of the Vision series, which Vinton has told us time and time again is amazing and that we need to read it and that it's super duper good. So looking forward to that. So next week is going to be a little different. We will be talking about comics. So if you can't... Vinton, who is that by? Tell us about those comics really quick.
That's by Tom King, and I really only know him from that. He is now writing Batman for DC.
Oh, great.
And I'm enjoying those, and he's doing something interesting over there, but it's something completely different. So I don't know that I could say, hey, anything Tom King, go check out Tom King. But specifically Vision, he had a vision for that series, and it was specifically really interesting and a new take on not only that superhero, but superhero comics in general.
Okay.
With a deep philosophical bend to it that really makes you just question things.
Yeah.
So
well, I'm really looking forward
interesting to dive into it.
Can't wait. So that's next week on Excelsior.
Yep. Sounds great. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, you can get in touch with us over on Twitter at ExcelsiorCast. You can find me on Twitter at Elsa Grab the Salt.
You can find me on Twitter at Paper Bullets.
And I'm at Flesh Eater.
So thank you guys so much for joining us for our very first episode of Excelsior, and we will see you guys next week.
Nature made us a freak, man made us a weapon, and God made this podcast last a little too long.
Excelsior!
Excelsior!
Excelsior!